Mira Solari stood quietly in the heart of the engagement reception on Neru's station, a mining colony clinging to the frozen crust of an ice moon orbiting a gas giant no one bothered to name. The observation dome above was strung with warm copper lights that flickered softly against the cold void beyond. The stars looked close enough to touch, cold, silent witnesses to the lives scraping by in the mining tunnels below. Inside the dome, the wealthier colonists sipped amber liquor from earth and nibbled on rare hydroponic fruit. Servers drifted on magnetic boots, balancing trays of crystal flutes filled with imported champagne, a luxury on Nerus, where even water was mined drop by drop from ancient ice veins. The guests laughed, toasted, congratulated the new couple, Mira Solari and Cassian Winters. Mira, 28, looked calm and composed in a tailored suit of gray mining cloth stitched with tiny fibers that shimmered like frost under the dome lights. She'd always been quiet, not because she was shy, but because she'd learned that those who wait and watch usually survive. She scanned the crowd, eyes landing on Cassian's mother, Aria Winters, matriarch of Winters Deepcore, the mining company that owned half of Nerus's tunnels and most of its air supply contracts. Aria was legend here. A sharp-tongued business queen whose custom exosuit, plated in chrome and studded with polished meteor gems, announced her power before she spoke a word. Her influence ran deeper than the mining shafts, and everyone knew it. All evening Aria had smiled her perfect, cold smile at Mira but hadn't said a word directly. She didn't need to. Now, as she passed Mira near the dome's edge, she leaned in close enough for everyone nearby to hear. A miner's daughter, imagine that, Aria murmured, her breath a faint mist in the cold dome air. She must have begged him for that ring. Clung to him like a tick. Mira didn't flinch. She'd spent her childhood deeper in the ice than any of these people had ever been. She knew how to stand still in the dark and wait for the ground to shift. Her hands were steady at her sides, but her mind burned, because the truth was, she had forged that ring herself. Every alloy, every micro-etched rune, every shard of reclaimed asteroid diamond. Cassian had bought it through an intermediary, wanting it to be a surprise, not knowing Mira would recognize her own work in an instant. She owned the only private forge on Nerus, hidden behind a supply shaft in the lowest sector. She'd built it herself, piece by piece, from scavenged mining rigs and broken drone arms. But Aria didn't know that. To her, Mira was just another miner's child, unfit for her orbit. Nearby guests pretended not to hear but leaned in just enough. Some whispered behind crystal glasses. Others watched like miners at the mouth of a fresh vein, waiting to see if gold or poison would spill out. Mira didn't give them the show they wanted. She didn't snap back, didn't defend herself. She smoothed the sleeve of her suit, lifted her chin, and stepped away. She wasn't silent because she was weak. She was silent because, like any good miner, she knew the richest veins run deep and dark, and patience always wins in the tunnels. Myra's mother had been a driller's assistant, crawling the lower shafts day and night just to keep Mira fed. They'd lived in a single-room module bolted to the wall of the old shaft towns, where frost crept through the seams at night. They'd owned nothing but a battered hotplate, a steel bunk, and each other. When Mira turned 13, she got her first shifts, hauling scrap ore in battered mining pods that coughed freezing steam into the dark. She watched her mother's hands bleed raw fixing old rock splitters for other families too poor to buy new. It was here, in the junkyard, that Mira found her calling, mending broken things. She fell in love with metal that obeyed fire and hammer, with the patient glint of ore pulled from the dark. She saved every credit from every shift. She learned to weld by stealing hours at the maintenance bays. By 21, she'd carved out a secret forge in the abandoned recesses of an old salt tunnel, a tiny pocket of warmth in the endless cold. Her first pieces were simple tools, repair brackets, and reinforced seals. Then came the rings, small treasures forged from scraps of the mines, stardust diamond, meteorite slivers, polished ice core. Each one told a story of survival in the dark. One day, Cassian Winters came through her hidden hatch, looking for a custom piece, a necklace for his sister's birthday. He said he'd heard rumors of a quiet ringsmith who worked miracles with reclaimed ore. Mira kept her eyes down, her words few, but her mind sharp. She helped him pick a slender band of polished comet iron, set with a speck of blue ice gem mined so deep no drone could reach it. He came back the next day, no piece to buy, just a thermos of real coffee from the upper station kitchens. Then again, and again. Sometimes he brought spare parts for her forge. Sometimes he just sat and watched her hammer sparks into the cold metal. He was kind in ways that made her hope. When he kissed her, it felt like warm breath in an airless shaft. When he slipped the ring onto her finger, whispering "I love the way you make broken things whole," she believed him. At first, she met Arya Winters at a gala in the upper modules. Arya's eyes flicked over Myra's simple suit, the calluses on her knuckles, the frost burn on her cheekbones. The polite smiles never reached those pale eyes. "She's resourceful," Arya said sweetly to Cassian, her voice like polished ice. "But not one of us." Cassian brushed it off. "She's just testing you," he'd say. "She'll come around." But Mira had spent her whole life around tunnels that promised riches and collapsed on top of you instead. A week after the engagement, Arya invited them to her orbital penthouse, a crystalline fortress perched at the highest point of Neru Station. She called it a family brunch. Mira knew it was a show trial. She wore her best, a simple suit she'd stitched herself with thin blue piping along the seams. She stepped through marble-floored halls lined with flowers shipped in cryo from Mars. The guests all wore earth silk and diamond weaves. Their eyes flicked to her hands, her suit, her boots scuffed from the lower tunnels. The questions came sharp and polite. "How quaint, a private forge. You sell trinkets, and you run it yourself. No family help, no real business partners." Every word dripped like acid onto old iron. Mira answered softly when she could. She bit her tongue when she had to. Then Arya lifted Myra's hand mid-conversation, turning it in the soft dome light. The ring gleamed, stardust diamond catching every star outside the glass. "Pretty little scrap," Arya said, voice silk smooth. "Next time, maybe he'll buy her a real gem." Silence clamped around the table. Knives paused over plates. Even the dome lights seemed to dim. Myra's voice cut through like a mining torch. "Funny thing about scrap, Arya. I forged this ring myself, from the same rock your family drills for profit. Every vein you claim, every shaft you own, I know them better than you ever will." Arya's smile snapped shut. Cassian stared at his untouched glass. He didn't say a word. They left in silence. In their cramped sleeping pod, Mira asked softly, "Why didn't you speak up?" Cassian turned away, voice thin. "I didn't want to make it worse." "She doesn't mean it. Just words." "It meant something to me," Mira said, but he didn't look at her. Days passed. The tension thickened. Cassian suggested waiting on the wedding. Let her adjust. Then came the contract. A thick datapad dropped on her forge table. "A formal protection document," he called it. "A polite word for a prenup. It's just smart business," he said. "A formality." Mira stared at flickering clauses, legal language cutting her worth to pieces. "A formality?" she asked. Cassian shrugged. Then came the final blow. Her landlord pinged her with an encrypted notice. Someone was buying the old tunnels beneath her forge. Cash deal, no questions asked. A buyout big enough to force her out. Who made the offer? Arya Winters. Mira stood alone in her forge that night, surrounded by tools she'd welded from scrap, the cooling glow of her anvil, the walls she'd carved with her bare hands. No corporation would steal this vein from her. Not without a fight. She dug, the way miners always do. She cracked old comm logs, abandoned chat feeds. And she found the pattern. Another girl, another engagement, buried years back under sealed NDAs. A mechanic's daughter from a dome lower than hers, left ruined when Cassian's silence bought him peace at family dinners. When Mira confronted him, he sputtered excuses. "It was the past, I'm different now." But Mira had mined enough truth to know when a tunnel was empty. She slipped the ring off her finger, laid it on the forge. "You didn't lose me to your mother, Cassian. You lost me because you stood quiet when I needed your voice." She walked away, not back to the upper dome, but down to the tunnels that raised her. Word spread like a breach alarm. Mira Solari wasn't broken, she was forging something new. She secured her tunnels with the help of an old foreman who once taught her to weld. Together they turned her hidden forge into an independent mining co-op. No more company chains, no more Winter's Core. The tunnels fed her people now. She released a new line of rings called Fault Line, each piece a promise that even the deepest cracks can birth light. Miners' wives, shaft girls, engineers, they all lined up for a piece of her story. When Arya sued her for defamation over a viral post about the ringsmith who wouldn't bow, the courts laughed her out of orbit. The tunnels, the people, they chose Mira. When Cassian showed up at her forge with tired eyes and wilted flowers, Mira didn't slam the door. She let him speak. Then she closed it behind him with calm hands and an unbroken heart. Late at night, alone in her forge, Mira hammers a new ring, just plain titanium pulled from the tunnels her mother once worked. No gems, no shine. Just metal, strong and simple. She slips it onto her own finger. A miner's promise. No one writes my story for me again. Above her, the dome lights flicker. Below her, the tunnels hum. Outside, the stars burn cold and clear, the only witnesses she'll ever need.